The movie kicks off in a laboratory setting where some injured but still dangerous lizards are moving around. This results in a deadly incident as a doctor ends up covered in blood. Dr. Yang Ji-Soo, a scientist, rushes to check the data on his computer before heading to another lab where his daughter, So-Yun, lies unconscious. He reassures her that she'll be okay and prepares to administer an injection. However, his efforts are interrupted when Lee Ji-yi, a senior researcher, arrives with the police. She's concerned about the damage caused by Dr. Yang's experiments. She believes that it's time to let So-Yun pass away peacefully, but Dr. Yang is convinced that his formula is effective and refuses to give up. Just as Dr. Yang is about to inject his daughter, a police officer shoots him, causing a severe injury. In the midst of the chaos, a massive earthquake hits, destroying the buildings around them. Dr. Yang manages to inject himself with the shot, but the building collapses before he can give it to So-Yun, leaving the city in ruins. Fast forward 3 years, and Seoul has turned into a barren wasteland known as the Badlands. Here, we meet Ji-Vun, a young hunter scavenging for food. During his hunt, he encounters a fierce crocodile. Despite his efforts to fight it using fire and arrows, the crocodile retaliates, forcing Ji-Vun to take refuge in a car to avoid becoming the predator's meal. Fortunately, Nam-san, his hunting partner since the earthquake, arrives just in time. Together, they take down the crocodile and share the food, earning a reputation as Badland hunters who have learned to survive in this harsh environment. Elsewhere in the Badlands, Han Suna and her grandmother are struggling to stay alive, relying on the water her grandmother collects while waiting for Nam-san and Ji-Vun to return from their hunts. Nearby, other survivors are living in extreme poverty, depending on a machine that purifies water. When Nam-san and Ji-Vun return from their hunt, they find a crowd gathered around their shop, eager to barter goods for meat. In this new world, money holds no value, and people trade items like jewelry for basic necessities. Ji-Vun shows little interest in a woman offering jewelry, but Nam-san surprises everyone by trading for a snake, highlighting how survival takes precedence over material wealth. Han Suna and her grandmother join the bustling crowd at the meat stand. Nam-san, who rescued Han Suna during the earthquake, has become a father figure to her. She expresses her gratitude by giving him a painting she made, and Nam-san, touched by the gesture, rewards her with a generous amount of meat. Their moment of peace is interrupted when Yoon Palji, a self-proclaimed cop, shows up with a group of thugs, claiming he's looking for someone depicted in a painting. He tries to harm Han Suna, but Ji-Vun intervenes. Things escalate until Nam-san steps in and defeats the gang. During the fight, Yoon Palji mentions Tiger, his boss, and Nam-san deduces the location of clean water, seizing control of the area and driving the gang away. In the midst of the chaos, a woman tries to flirt with Nam-san, reflecting the unpredictability of this new world. Later, as Nam-san and Ji-Vun prepare to leave, they notice a group gathering at Han Suna's home. The leaders of the Safe Haven organization, Teacher, Mr. Oh, and Choi, explain that they are there to take Han Suna and her grandmother to an apartment that offers shelter, food, and clean water, but only for those under 20 and their families. Nam-san, concerned about the safety of the apartment, questions Teacher, who reassures him that former soldiers are present to maintain security. The organization's focus is on educating and protecting the younger generation. Han Suna, hoping to stay with Nam-san and Ji-Vun, asks if they can join her new life, but Teacher declines, saying it's against policy. Nam-san encourages her to go for her future and promises to visit. Before she leaves, Han Suna gives Ji-Vun a sketch, lifting his spirits in the uncertainty ahead. That night, Ji-Vun admires the drawing, thinking maybe Han Suna has feelings for him. Nam-san, however, feels a deep sadness, haunted by memories of not being able to save his own daughter. Ji-Vun tries to lighten the mood, jokingly suggesting Nam-san should get married just to secure a place to live. Nam-san laughs, brushing it off, and the two head out together into the night. Meanwhile, Han Suna, her grandmother, and Teacher are on their way to their new apartment. Along the way, they meet other families, including Lee Ji-yi, who quickly bonds with Han Suna. The journey is tough for the elderly, so Teacher suggests taking them to a medical camp. Han Suna's grandmother insists she stay with the group, so Mr. Oh and Choi escort the elderly, while Han Suna and the others continue. As they travel, Han Suna notices cars arriving to pick them up and asks why her grandmother isn't with them. Sergeant Kwon assures her she'll arrive the next day. Han Suna, eager to help two thirsty children, hurries along, noticing a strange scar behind Kwon's ear, as she passes. While hunting, Jivun witnesses Mr. O and Choi murder Han Suna's grandmother and another elderly man. He tries to intervene, but they fire at him. Namsen arrives to help, but the men rise again, showing strange growths behind their ears. As Jivun is nearly overpowered, Sergeant Lee Yunho steps in, killing the attackers. Jivun and Namsan then bury Han Suna's grandmother, and Lee Yunho reveals her mission to save people from Dr. Yang's sinister experiments involving missing children. Namsan and Jivun then overpower the gang forces, freeing the captives and capturing Tiger, who reveals he's been trading children for access to water. Tiger's ability to cross boundaries only with a child complicates Namsan's efforts to bring him down. Elsewhere, Han Suna asks about her grandmother, and her teacher reassures her, though it's a false promise. Dr. Yang, meanwhile, offers rewards to the top-performing families, but only the teens get proper treatment, while their families are forced to labor in isolation in the basement. In Dr. Yang's lab, unsettling events unfold, like him and Quan eating a live mouse. The teacher hints that Han Suna and Li Juyi might make good test subjects for water-related experiments. Han Suna notices her classmates' scars behind their ears, raising her suspicion, and she secretly avoids drinking the water given to her. Dr. Yang later chooses Li Juyi as his new assistant, while Han Suna is told her grandmother is in the infirmary, deepening her distrust. Dr. Yang tests a serum on Quan, hinting it's beneficial, but avoids sharing details, revealing his desperation to cure his daughter. That night, Han Suna sneaks around the facility and overhears Dr. Yang and Quan's conversation, just as Namsan's team heads toward the location in Tiger's truck. Dr. Yang reassures Li Juyi's parents that they'll see her soon, but he's hiding something darker. In Dr. Yang's lab, Han Suna discovers that he's been experimenting on reptiles to create a healing serum and finds Li Juyi connected to a machine with a scar behind her ear. Dr. Yang catches Han Suna, and as Li Juyi's parents attempt to save her, chaos erupts. Dr. Yang, desperate, shows them his daughter's preserved, still beating heart, but kills Li Juyi's father in a fit of rage when he tries to free her. Quan then shoots her mother as she tries to flee, escalating the horror of Dr. Yang's experiments. Namsan, increasingly worried about Han Suna and Lee Yunho, heads to Dr. Yang's facility where dark experiments are underway. Dr. Yang, aiming to extract substances from teens' pituitary glands activated by the water they drink, begins his experiment on Han Suna, causing her severe pain. Meanwhile, Namsan and his team arrive, posing as delivery drivers. When guards get suspicious, Namsan quickly knocks one out and storms the facility under heavy fire, crashing straight into the lobby. Jivun and Lee Yunho engage in a fierce shootout, clearing soldiers as they push toward the lab. As they fight, they stumble upon Lee Yunho's former squad mates, now turned into zombie-like creatures. A brutal battle ensues, and they discover the only way to kill these zombies is by decapitation. Dr. Yang tries to negotiate, offering them an exit if they abandon their mission, but Namsen insists on rescuing Han Suna and destroying Yang's mind control device. They blast their way through the building, with Namsen using a fire extinguisher to create a smoke screen and take down guards. He then rallies the workers in the basement to rescue their children. Meanwhile, Jivun and Lee Yunho fight their way up, but Quan, who has developed tough, lizard-like skin, throws Lee Yunho off a balcony. Jivun, in search of Han Suna, captures the teacher and demands to be led to the lab. In the lab, Dr. Yang administers a medicine to Han Suna, but it backfires as she hasn't drunk enough water, causing Dr. Yang to break out in strange marks and vomit. Jivun and the teacher intervene just in time as Dr. Yang attempts to harm Han Suna. Amid the chaos, Dr. Yang's daughter is placed in a bag, and the group takes the medicine with them. Namsen confronts Quan, and in a final showdown, throws him out a window. However, Quan manages to grab Namsen's arm, trapping him, and uses the window frame to decapitate Namsen in a grim twist. Outside, the parents reunite with their children, but Jivun is wounded in the lab. As Dr. Yang, the teacher, and the soldier attempt to flee, Namsen stops them. Dr. Yang runs off, but leaves behind a grenade that explodes. Jivun places Han Suna on a stretcher, shielding her from harm. As the lab burns, Lee Yunho regains consciousness and sees Namsan saving Jivun and Han Suna. The angry parents turn on Dr. Yang, destroying his medical equipment. Dr. Yang, now sick, accidentally kills his daughter when the medicine leaks. In his final moments, he continues shooting until Namsen ends him. As the skies darken, rain begins to fall, bringing joy to everyone. Lee Yunho decides to stay behind to help the others, while Namsan, Han Suna, and Jivun head back to the bus stop. Han Suna grieves at her grandmother's grave, but finds solace in joining a new family with the Badlands hunters. Jivun affectionately calls the jewelry lady Ma, while Namsen walks away, seeking solitude.